I want to start this story by saying something I never thought I'd have to say out loud. I hope I was wrong. I hope the person I'm about to tell you about was genuinely sick. I hope the tests were real. I hope the hospital visits were real. I hope every tear, every phone call, every time she said she didn't know how much longer she had, I hope all of it was real. Because the alternative is something I still can't fully wrap my head around. Her name was Carla. She was my closest friend for 11 years. And for 2 of those years, I believed she was dying. Welcome back to the Untold Verdict, where every story has 2 sides, and you're the judge. This one is the hardest story I've covered on this channel. There's no clean payoff. No satisfying courtroom moment. Just a question I still don't have a full answer to. Let's get into it. Carla and I met in college. Same dorm, same floor. Same terrible dining hall coffee. We became the kind of friends who know everything about each other. The embarrassing things, the family things, the things you don't tell anyone else. By the time we were in our late 20s, she was the person I called first for everything. Good news, bad news, 3 in the morning, panic attacks, everything. So when she called me on a Tuesday afternoon in the spring 2 years ago and said she needed to tell me something, I picked up on the second ring. She said the doctors had found something, a mass. They weren't sure yet what it was, but the early indicators weren't good, and she needed to go in for more tests. She was scared. She was crying. I was crying. I told her I was there. Whatever she needed. I meant every word. Over the next few weeks, the story developed. The mass was confirmed as a tumor. The tumor was in a difficult location. Surgery was risky. Chemotherapy might be the path forward. The doctors were consulting with specialists. She never showed me any paperwork. I never thought to ask. Why would I? This was Carla. The first 6 months were intense. She was exhausted all the time, which made sense. She lost some weight, which made sense. She canceled plans constantly, which made sense. I reorganized my entire life around her schedule. I drove her to what she said were appointments. I sat with her in parking lots while she said she was too tired to go inside and just needed a minute. I brought her food. I covered her half of dinner bills. I lent her money when she said the medical costs were overwhelming, twice. A few $100s the first time. More the second. I also quietly ran a fundraiser among our friend group. Nothing huge, just enough to help with bills. People gave generously, because everyone loved Carla. And then, around month 7, I noticed the first thing. It was small, almost nothing. We were at a restaurant together. A rare good day, she said. She was feeling stronger than usual, and she ordered a glass of wine. Now, I know that's not unusual on its own. Some people undergoing treatment still drink occasionally. I'm not a doctor, but something about it sat with me. Because she'd mentioned, more than once, that her treatment was particularly aggressive, and her doctors had been very strict about what she could and couldn't consume. I didn't say anything. I pushed it aside. Month 9. She mentioned offhandedly that she might be going on a trip with some friends from work, a long weekend, nothing big. I remember sitting with that information for a moment. Not saying anything, but sitting with it. Because 3 weeks earlier she had told me she'd had a particularly bad scan result, and her energy levels were the lowest they'd been since the diagnosis. I didn't say anything. I pushed it aside. Month 11. I ran into a mutual friend, someone who knew Carla but wasn't in our close circle. We grabbed coffee, and she mentioned seeing Carla out the previous weekend, at a concert, dancing. I went home that night and sat quietly for a very long time. I wasn't angry yet. I wasn't even suspicious yet. Not fully. Because I loved this person and I did not want to think what I was starting to think. But I couldn't stop thinking it. I started paying closer attention. Not in a confrontational way. Just paying attention. I noticed her hair. She'd said the chemotherapy had caused significant thinning. And it had looked thinner. Or I had believed it looked thinner. But looking at photos from the past few months, I couldn't actually see a consistent pattern of loss. Some photos it looked thin. Some it looked completely normal. I'd never questioned it before. I noticed her energy levels. Good days and bad days. That was always the explanation. But the bad days seemed to align suspiciously well with days she'd asked for money or needed a favor. The good days seemed to come whenever something fun was happening. I noticed she had never once asked me to come inside a medical building with her. Not once in nearly a year. I didn't know what to do with any of this. Because here's the thing about suspecting something like this about someone you love. There is no good outcome. If you're wrong, you've doubted someone who was genuinely sick and suffering. You've betrayed the trust of your closest friend at the worst moment of her life. If you're right, you've lost that person anyway. Just in a completely different way. I confided in one person, my older sister. I told her everything. The wine, the concert, the trip, the hair, the pattern of the good days and bad days. I laid it all out. My sister was quiet for a long time. Then she said something I've thought about almost every day since. She said, "You already know. You're just hoping you don't." I asked Carla to meet me for coffee. Just the two of us. I didn't go in with accusations. I went in with one question, gently, carefully, with as much love as I could put into my voice. I told her I wanted to come to her next appointment with her. That I felt guilty for never being there in the actual room. That I wanted to be there, really there, from now on. She looked at me for a moment. And then she said her doctor preferred she come alone. That having someone else in the room made the appointments harder. That she appreciated the offer, but it was better this way. I nodded. I said I understood. And then I went home and cried for about an hour. Not because I was certain, but because that answer, delivered in the exact way it was delivered, told me something I didn't want to know. I made a decision. I'm not proud of every part of it, but I made it. I asked my sister's husband, who works in healthcare administration, if there was any legitimate way for me, as a close friend, to verify that someone was receiving treatment at the hospital they'd mentioned. Not to access records, not to violate anything, just to confirm they were a patient there at all. He told me that wasn't something he could help with directly. Patient privacy laws exist for good reason. He couldn't confirm or deny anyone's status as a patient. But he said something else. He said that if I genuinely needed to know, the most direct path was simply to ask Carla to show me something. An appointment card, a prescription bottle, an insurance explanation of benefits, something tangible that a real patient would have and wouldn't think twice about showing a close friend. So I did. We were on the phone a few days later, and I told her I'd been doing some reading, just trying to understand her treatment better. And I was wondering if she could walk me through what her current medication schedule looked like, what she was taking, what the dosages were. There was a pause on the line, a long one. And then she said she didn't really want to talk about the medical details because it made everything feel more real, and she was trying to stay positive. I said I understood. I did not call her for 2 weeks after that. On day 15, she called me. Said she hadn't heard from me and was worried. Said she needed me. Said things had gotten harder and I was the only person she could really talk to. I took a breath, and I said what I had spent 2 weeks preparing to say. I told her that I loved her, that if she was sick, truly, genuinely sick, I was there, completely. No questions, the same as I had always been. But I told her that I needed her to show me something real. One thing. A prescription. A doctor's name I could look up. Anything that would help me feel confident I was supporting her the right way. The silence that followed was the longest of my life. She hung up. She didn't call back that day, or the next day, or the week after. What she did instead was call 3 of our mutual friends and tell them I had accused her of lying about having cancer, that I had demanded she prove it to me, that I had been cold and suspicious and had abandoned her when she needed me most. 2 of those friends stopped talking to me, just like that. 11 years, and then nothing. I never got a definitive answer. Carla never produced any documentation. She also never got visibly worse. 2 years later, as far as I can tell from what mutual connections have told me, she is alive, apparently healthy, and has never once mentioned her illness publicly again. Does that prove anything? No. People recover. Treatments work. Miracles happen. But the money was never returned. The fundraiser money was never returned. And every single person she told about my accusation, not one of them ever came back to me and said she'd shown them proof either. I've thought about this almost every day for 2 years. About what I lost. About what she may or may not have done. About whether I handled it right. About the 2 friends who chose her side without asking a single question. About the fact that I still, even now, don't know for certain. And that's the part that never goes away. So, here is your verdict. Was I right to ask for proof? Or should I have kept believing, kept giving, kept showing up, no matter what my instincts were telling me? And if she was lying, what do you do with someone like that? Someone who looked you in the eye for 2 years and said, I might be dying, and let you believe it? Drop your verdict in the comments. I genuinely want to know what you would have done. And if stories like this one hit different for you, the kind that stay with you long after they're over, then you're exactly who this channel is for. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications. Every week I bring you a new story, real situations, real people, real consequences. No filler, no fluff. Just the kind of story you can't stop thinking about. We're just getting started on the Untold verdict, and the best stories are still coming. This has been the Untold verdict. Every side of the story. You decide.